You ever heard the saying that we only use 10% of our brain? Well, what is that? That's because the other 90% is subconscious. You're not conscious of it. And if you go deeper than that, the subconscious programming that you have is just like the software on the hardware of a computer. You don't even realize it's working until you try to change it. That programming has one word. It's called habits. And they literally control your entire life. And so in this video, we're going over the 10 big ideas from James Clear, Atomic Habits, how you can actually break bad ones and install new ones and change your life. Man, there's one book that kept coming up in the comments. You guys kept telling me, Clark, read Atomic Habits. Can you review Atomic Habits? And I hadn't read it yet. So first and foremost, thank you for the recommendation. This book was fantastic and I can't wait to give you these 10 big ideas. Second thing, these videos take a bit more work than usual. So if you could, obliterate and aggressively smash that like button. Break your mouse, smash it as hard as you can. Subscribe with those bell notifications set to on if you're stoked. And also, last thing, you can get this for free by downloading a free trial to Audible, which I'll link below. I listened to about 2/3 of this on Audible when I was walking around, and it stuck with me a lot more. Here we go. Psychologist Edward Thorndike did an experiment. He was obsessed with cats, kind of like the crazy cat lady, but he was a dude. He placed cats in a pitch black box. Each cat did what you would expect. They scramble around for minutes, freaking out, clawing at the walls. What they didn't know is there was a lever placed inside that box that when they hit, the door would open. As you guessed, the cats found it and got out. Thorndike was a bit of a maniac. He said, one time wasn't good enough, let's keep this experiment going. Here's what happened. As he placed the same cats in over and over again, their escape time went from 60 minutes, 90 minutes for some at the start, down to 20. 30 minutes. And eventually, after 20 or 30 times, the average cat could escape in only 6 seconds. It became habitual for the kitty to look for the switch and get out. What that study illustrates is at first, when we're trying things new, it's really hard. But in order to conserve energy, to conserve the panic, conserve the scratching at the walls and freaking out, our brains pick up on habits. Oh, I've done this before. And pretty soon the response becomes automatic and you escape. The cats learn the power of atomic habits. Atomcat habits, I guess you could say. Now, before we go any further, let's first break down the thing we're all probably thinking. And I was thinking this too. That is, won't habits and routines make my life dull, boring, routine? Where's the spontaneity? Where's the freedom I get from just going with the flow? Little production for you. But there's freedom in discipline. There's freedom when your brain doesn't have to search. Okay, how am I gonna do this? It's new. That's the cat scrambling inside. Quick personal story. I literally tried to do extreme self-development, schedule your day, habits, routines, be disciplined, and it didn't work. It was the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Over here you have no habit, no routine, so you're overthinking all day, you're stressed out and you don't get anything done, you procrastinate. Well, then over here you have the other extreme of too many habits, too regimented, too much structure. You have no freaking freedom, okay? And I literally was like, hey, let me try out this camp. So what I did for a month, I kid you not, I tracked in a spreadsheet every single 30 minutes throughout my entire day for a month. And I was trying to see patterns and habits. And it was one of the most stressful things I ever did, so I would not recommend that. If you literally just sat and thought all day and you overthought your life, you would be exhausted by the end of the day. That's how your brain uses a majority of your glucose, right? And that's why so many people who have trouble with anxiety or overthinking, they feel what? Low energy, fatigue, because they're just using that machine just throughout the day. That's scratching at the wall. Of course they're exhausted. So my point for number 2, there's discipline, and that equals freedom. That habits give structure to your life. I want to do something really different now for this next point. Instead of just giving you more theory, I want to have you take some action, okay? You down to do a little experiment here? I want you to either in the comments below, or you can pull out your phone and do this in your notes app. If you got a piece of paper, write this down in your journal. I want you to answer these 2 questions, okay? The first one is I want you to think about the 2.0 you. Like the ultimate vision of you. You know you could be there, you know you should be doing stuff, you know it's possible, but for some reason you're not. What is one habit that you want to incorporate in your life? Is this working out more? Is this not checking your phone first thing in the morning? Is this filming content? Is this doing something spiritually like meditating that you know you could do? One thing you know you could be doing, okay? I want you to write that down. So the one thing to start doing. The second question, and these are very important for what we're about to do in this video together, or just get it in your mind clearly, okay? The second question, what is the one thing you could stop doing that you know is kind of holding you back? Is this eating super late at night? Is this drinking multiple times a week? Is this smoking weed a lot? Is this, just procrastinating instead of taking massive action on something? We all are watching Netflix. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but what is the one thing here, no judgment, that you want to stop doing? In here, James Clear talks about that winners and losers have the same goals. Every Olympian who trains for the Olympics wants to go to the Olympics. And then obviously when they're there, they all want to win the gold medal, but only a few do. And we normally just hear about the people who win, and that's survivorship bias, which is a cognitive bias that we won't get into, but he talks about it in the book, that you only hear about the winners, you never talk about the losers. And when you look at the winners and losers that have the same goal, it's not the goal, it's the systems. And that's a massive point. That you don't rise to the level of your training, you fall to the level of your systems. The goal is not to read one book, the goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to reduce your cigarette smoking, the goal is to be a non-smoker. The goal is not to make $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, $500,000 a year. The goal is to be financially free. I believe the goal is not to sit all day on a dating app and swipe right, message. The goal is to find a relationship where you feel enough and you can build something together. But welcome to 2020, right? Modern dating. The goal is to ghost people, apparently. So knowing that we have those goals, what is it that keeps us in these habit loops? Let's go a little further. The next point is that we are addicted to a chemical. It's a very bad chemical and you can't help but produce it, but it might be holding you back. It's naturally good, but an overconsumption, you're just like a freaking, addict, gotta get a fix on this thing. It's dopamine. Dopamine is life. That is what we live for. One study is crazy. Here it is. In 1954, two neuroscientists ran an experiment testing desire. They used electrodes that blocked the release of dopamine in rats, the pleasure chemical. You know what happened? Were they less motivated? Were they lazy? Were they fat? Even worse. They died. They had no desire to eat, to drink, to move, because they already had the thing that motivates us to do the action. Isn't that crazy? That if you literally had this hit of dopamine, this hit of a drug that's so powerful, you would lose motivation altogether. So why is this important? Because we have to understand that every single negative habit we have, or that one you wrote down earlier, has a positive intent. It does. And it's not to get rid of something, because that's trying to remove something and that causes a lot of pain. You're trying to do something to get dopamine or to get pleasure. So that's a positive intent right there, but you're skipping the process a lot of times. We all are, because now with technology, with social media, I was watching The Social Dilemma, I think it was called, on Netflix, super good documentary about how these companies, tech companies, right? They literally program this stuff to hit and hijack our dopamine systems. So that's why you can't stop picking up your phone. You can't stop swiping. You can't stop scrolling, right? Because it's literally chemically addicted. And then we wonder why we're so lazy all the time, or we procrastinate on stuff. Well, because that stuff's not getting us the dopamine hit. So we're just like those rats who literally had all their needs met, or one need met, and they didn't need to frickin' eat, sleep, or do any of that, and they died. Scary, scary stuff. You're wondering what the heck is the point, Clark? Well, let's break this down a little further on the handy dandy whiteboard, and I'll draw up this system and how it's running your scripts. If you've studied habit or behavior change, you know that the first step is always a what? A cue. But what I like is in the book, James Clear says there's actually a second step before the third and fourth. It's this, a craving. Then there's response, reward. These all go like this and influence each other. Example, your phone buzzes with a text. The craving is you want to check it and see what your friend sent you. The response is you check it, and the reward is the dopamine hit from you and them texting back and forth. Example, you wake up. Craving, you want to feel alert. You got that morning feeling. You're groggy. Response, you drink a cup of coffee. Reward, you satisfy that morning feeling, and then coffee gets associated with waking up. Knowing this cycle runs us, let's keep going and show you how to use it before it uses you. James Clear spends a lot of the book going over the 4 laws of building habits. So let's talk about incorporating that first habit that you want to incorporate. Okay, the thing in your head that you wrote down earlier. Before the next point is we'll talk about the 4 laws of breaking habits, of removing stuff. First, make it obvious. Second, make it attractive. Third, make it easy. And fourth, make it satisfying. These all go in cue, craving, routine, reward. They pair up with each. Example, make it obvious. So the first step, let's just take the cliche example of someone trying to lose weight. Build that habit in. We know it's hard because 80% of people by the second week of February fall off their New Year's resolution. We have a population who's 66% obese or overweight. So clearly that's a hard habit for everyone. Make it obvious. This might be buying a gym membership. The second, make it attractive. Well, one thing you could consider doing is make a vision board of all the bodies, the ideal body types that you like. And this doesn't have to be like some dude on stage posing, but just people who are the same body fat percentage you want to be. So it's attractive. It's like, once I get there, I get that. That's very powerful. I've done that in the past. I've had it on my phone, and I've literally looked at men's bodies when I'm working out. You get the point. It motivated me. It pumped me up. It's like looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger and you're like, yeah, me too. Third, make it easy. When I did this, I said, I want to go to the gym multiple times a week, but I'll only go for 20 minutes. Literally 20 minutes. Because I came from college with those Arnold days, right? And I was in decent shape there. And I would have to do like an hour and a half long workout and just be so exhausted. And every time I thought of it, I was like, an hour and a half, I'll skip the gym, right? So I just said, no, 20 minutes, it's easy. Lastly, make it satisfying. This is your reward, okay? So after you do the thing, maybe you could give yourself, for me, it was a protein shake from the smoothie bar, so I didn't have to make it at home and it was way better there. 4 laws of breaking habits. What about this? Think about that thing you wanted to change earlier, okay? And use this as the example and ask yourself, okay, how can I use those to break that habit, okay? Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. I had a friend who was addicted to porn, okay? And he was raised in a Christian household and was still a practicing Christian. So not only did he have all this guilt about it, but he was getting married and he didn't want to bring that into a marriage. So what did he do? Let's use these 4. Make it invisible. He deleted everything and blocked the sites. He was like, okay, out of sight, out of mind. He didn't sleep with his computer when he was living alone in his bedroom. He didn't sleep with his phone in there too, because that would be a trigger to pull it up and, the rest of the story. The second was make it unattractive. I asked him the question, I'm like, one thing that helps me, man, is when I think about a habit that I had that I don't like, I say, do I want to be doing this when I'm 50, 40, 30, 60? And that to me is very unattractive. I had off topic, but I had an addiction to e-cigarettes and drooling. And there's a whole video about that. If you struggle with that, I posted a huge vlog on that. But I was like, do I want to be smoking an e-cigarette when I'm 40 years old and raising kids and, gotta go vape, man, gotta go hit this vape? No. So it was super unattractive and I just played that up in my mind and that was a huge motivator to quit. But that's not enough. You need the 2 other steps, which is what? Make it difficult, okay? So what my friend did is he said, hey man, I'm gonna install this software on my computer and my phone. I think it was called X Church or something like that. He learned about it through his church for a lot of men who struggle with porn addiction. And so he installed it. And what that does is that you can set up an accountability partner. And so anytime you try to disable it, block it, go to a site that's suspicious, it will emails them or text them, hey, this person's doing it. So you can reach out almost like a sponsor in like a recovery program. And so he did that for me. So it was super difficult for him to do it. And then the last one is make it unsatisfying, okay? And he agreed that every time he did slip up or when he would slip up, it would be so unsatisfying because he would have to have that conversation with his fiance, all right? And that, you don't want to open that bag of worms if that's what you commit to in a relationship. And look, here it's important to note that some things like addictions or things that really get hardwired into us from an early age, like 14 or whatever, onward that we've been doing for 10 years, it's going to require maybe even years of change. But awareness is always the first step. So some habits are way easier to break. You want to quit coffee, okay, switch to tea, pop a caffeine pill until it lowers and then eventually wean yourself off. Other habits like my friend's porn addiction, that can be very difficult to break, or smoking or drinking or anything that's really hardwired in, or overthinking or judging people, right? So just keep that in mind when you're doing habit change and be gentle on yourself. Don't beat yourself up, because the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up and move on, is guilt and shame are the lowest vibrational emotions you can feel. When you look at a chart, they're at the bottom. These are the anchors that latch on you. These are the demons that grab your feet and try to hold you back in the past, in depression, in overthinking, and get to you. Anything that you do, you could argue has a positive intent, right? You're trying to hit dopamine or anything like that. You're trying to feel not bored, you're trying to feel energized, whatever. So the real reason it's bad is the guilt and shame you feel, because then that turns it around and makes you feel bad about yourself. Does that make sense? I'll end with this point right here. And it's a bit different. I don't think he talks about it in the book, but I've personally geeked out on self-development now for over 10 years and experimented on myself and whatnot. I find consistently the biggest way to change a habit is to shake things up drastically. Okay, and so last year I was going through a rut in my business. I was dissatisfied with the marketing business I was running, and I felt no passion for content. I felt burnt out. I was mailing it in. I'd turn on the camera, just blah, 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 dancing monkey. And I was like, I want to get back to the root of how I felt when I started this, the passion, the authenticity, all of that. And I realized there was a lot of other things I was just mailing it in. My subconscious mind, my habits. Didn't like where I was living in gloomy Seattle. It was cold. I didn't have that many close friends that I could, hang out with or have deep conversations with. They were all different around the world that I met through masterminds. Didn't like the apartment I was living in. I was always punk rock, right? So it was like $800 a month. I had a roommate who was great, but super small and grungy. It was like by Section 8 housing. Even though my business was killing it and I was making all this money, I just never felt worthy enough to have like this nice place. So anyway, I'm telling you that because I decided to make a fundamental shift. I decided to not just go small, I wanted to go big. So what I did is my girlfriend and I talked about it. We decided to move here to Scottsdale, Arizona. Huge shift, change everything. And man, since making that shift, I felt like a different person. I felt like a 2.0 me. I'm doing all the things I wanted to do. I have this course coming out that I'm obsessed with, right? I feel like on fire to make content again. I feel like the direction's changed and it's finally taking off the way I've always envisioned it. And so where I'm going with that is sometimes it's not enough to have your current life and make little changes here and there. Maybe it's time for you to make some massive change. I don't know if that's moving across the country or whatever. I don't know if that's switching jobs. I don't know if that's just moving in general. But I find that when you shake things up in your environment like that, it's kind of a reset button and you're able to create this new identity for yourself. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that if you're feeling like you're in a funk or you're just looking at your life and you're super dissatisfied, when you shake things up, when you're ready to make a change, it's so much easier because you're changing everything to have those changes cascade to the life you want. So maybe it's time for you to make the 2.0 version of you. And if you want to, we dropped a video on the first couple sections of this book is all about identity and stepping into that 2.0, which is at the core of like every single thing we do. Habits stem from the identity you have. And if you don't fix that, good luck with just the action alone. It's not going to do it, because then otherwise people would be where they want to be. So if you want those first two chapters, I didn't put in this video so it wouldn't be redundant. I'll link up our identity video down below that goes over that. Super powerful, I think, and you can geek out way more on that. And of course, if you want this, feel free to grab it on Audible, support the channel down below. If you made it to the end of this video, smash that like button aggressively, like break your mouse or something, and subscribe with those bell notifications set to on. I'm Clark. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Stop settling, start living. See ya.